bar and the spokes of their wheel to trip them up, to your point. And I think it's important. Democrats, we tend to be a little more judgmental than we should be. This notion of cancel culture, you've been living it. You've been on the receiving end of it for years and years and years. That's real. And Democrats need to own up to that. They've got to mature about this.
So look, Aaron, those aren't the only times that we found that he used it. He also used it a lot on social media. Look at a few of these right here. You see there, that is a lot of use of Latinx by him for somebody who said that nobody in his office has ever used that phrase.
I never imagined I'd see the day when Gavin Newsom actually confessed. Or for once in his career, the truth slipped out. Remember the stories he spun about California's wildfires? Yes, that one. Get ready because this might be the biggest twist of the decade. In a recently released video, Newsom changed his tune and finally owned up. Surprising, isn't it?
John Fetterman was in the news today. He said, if you're talking about the Democratic Party, he said, if we don't get our together, we're going to be a permanent minority.
I agree.
And I see you're doing something about it. I applaud it. I think it's great. You've got this podcast. You're talking to people. You know, it's amazing to me that even that is controversial to some people. They call it platforming. If you talk to someone you don't agree with.
Yeah.
I feel like this country is divided into owners and healers. People who think you can own the others.
When Newsom casually dropped his little truth bomb, Bill Maher reacted as if he'd just seen something out of this world. The moment Gavin uttered those two shocking words, you could practically watch Maher's mind stall in real time. I agree. Let's be honest. Nobody expected California's slick-haired governor to be the one breaking character. Normally, we'd brace ourselves for the usual storm of finger-pointing, excuses, and verbal gymnastics. Instead, Maher flatly declared, the Democratic Party is on the edge of collapse. What followed was a cascade of revelations. Gavin, better known for never admitting fault, actually conceded that the party was in real trouble. For a man who built his reputation on glossing over disasters, that admission felt almost like sworn testimony. Even more surprising was the uneasy nod that followed. For once, he wasn't dodging, lecturing, or scolding like a substitute teacher on autopilot. He agreed. And when the politician most famous for polished denial starts showing cracks, you can bet the facade isn't just fragile, it's falling apart, spreading faster than anyone imagined.
Gavin Newsom owned DeSantis.
Yeah.
DeSantis destroyed Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
Or people who want to talk and heal. And I feel like the next president's going to be, at least if it comes from this party, the Democratic Party, someone who wants to talk and heal. And I feel like we're doing that.
Honestly, I don't buy the idea that Gavin Newsom's latest podcast has anything to do with healing or honest conversation. This isn't group therapy, it's politics. He's been eyeing this role for years, and what we're watching feels like a carefully staged audition. Think of it as President 2028, trial run. Newsom knows exactly where his California brand is bruised and patched together. Blackouts, shuttered businesses, wildfires, and staggering levels of homelessness. His imprint is on nearly every crisis. Now he's attempting a rebrand. Gone is the slick, untouchable Newsom 1.0. Enter Newsom 2.0, the so-called Democratic healer, suddenly positioning himself as the nation's great unifier. But let's not be fooled. It's all rehearsed. It's part of the package deal. To me, it reeks of fresh paint covering political theater. That's not sincerity. It's calculated image building. He isn't looking to make peace. He's looking to make his resume sparkle. That's how I see it. And really, who genuinely believes Gavin Newsom should be America's leader and counselor?
Interesting, the reaction to the podcast. I mean, we had some controversial figures on, I'll acknowledge that, and Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, and some others. But you're right. I mean, this idea that we can't even have a conversation with the other side.
You have to. They won.
Thank you. That's it, bottom line. And by the way, or the notion we just have to continue to talk to ourselves or we're in the same damn echo chamber. These guys are crushing us. The Democratic brand is toxic.
The idea that we'd be trapped in an echo chamber if we only talk to ourselves, that was pure Newsom. But then came the slip. Right now, the Democratic brand is toxic. Hold on a second. Did Gavin Newsom actually admit that? Because that's exactly how it sounded. And honestly, I was stunned. It was sharp, clear, and straight from his own mouth. The irony, though, is almost laughable. The party's decline didn't happen by chance. It was steered there by politicians like Newsom, who relied on polished speeches, flashy photo ops, and endless virtue signaling, while avoiding the hard work of genuine leadership. California, under his watch, stands as the prime example of a state in freefall, and now here he is, pointing out the cracks in his own house. The hypocrisy is rich, like the arsonist walking back to the ashes saying, Wow, that really burned fast. If Newsom wants to talk about toxicity, maybe he should start by facing his own reflection.
We had a high water mark 2 weeks ago, and that was a CNN poll at 29% favorability. It's dropped in the NBC poll down to 27%. It's one thing to make noise, but you also have to make sense. And I think with this podcast and having the opportunity to dialogue with people I disagree with, it's an opportunity to try to find common ground and not take cheap shots. I'm not looking to put a spoke in the wheel of their, or at least a crowbar in the spokes of their wheel to trip them up, to your point. And I think it's important. Democrats, we tend to be a little more judgmental than.
All through the conversation, Gavin Newsom couldn't resist circling back to his podcast. That's so on brand, slick, calculating, always selling something. It captures who he really is, the living model of today's Democratic politician. He'll dodge the hard questions, coat everything in polished one-liners, and leave you wondering what just happened once the haze clears. In truth, nothing about him has really changed. And did anyone else catch that not so innocent comment? Because it sure sounded like a quiet jab at Kamala Harris. Kamala, after all, has turned political word salad into an Olympic-level skill, stringing together long, winding sentences that somehow say nothing at all. So was Gavin deliberately taking a shot, or was it an unfiltered slip that escaped his media training? Either way, it peeled back the curtain. The party's golden children aren't shining the way they once did. Instead of radiance, we're watching them take aim at each other.
Cancel culture, you've been living it. You've been on the receiving end of it for years and years and years. That's real. And Democrats need to own up to that. They've got to mature about this.
If Gavin Newsom suddenly wants to preach accountability, then he should start with himself. Since taking office, he's overseen California's decline and can't possibly claim a spotless record while blaming Democrats on national television for losing in 2024. That's hypocrisy on stilts. Even he now admits California isn't a model state, it's more like a caution sign. Businesses are fleeing, homelessness has soared to historic levels, taxes are sky high, crime is spiraling, and living costs are pushing families out faster than the moving vans can line up. If Newsom insists that Democrats need to own their failures, then he should first set the example in his own backyard. Let's be clear, Newsom isn't just a bystander watching California crumble, he's the architect, blueprint in hand. His polished accountability routine is little more than upgraded stage lights on an empty theater, and his record doesn't stop at California's troubles. He shares the blame for the wider collapse of the Democratic brand. Case in point, he flat out denied ever using the term Latinx until the tape proved otherwise.
About the word Latinx. Just 2 weeks ago, here's what he said about it.
By the way, not one person ever in my office has ever used the word Latinx.
So can we finally put that to bed?
Yeah,
we agree?
where did that even
No
come?
more Latinx, everybody.
Well, I just didn't even know where it came from. I'm like, what are people talking about?
But there was a person who used Latinx. It was actually a really important person. It was him.
I hope we can really paint a picture in terms of our consciousness of how impactful this has been on the Latinx community. The Latinx and Black communities. You've got politicians that are banning not assault rifles, but the word Latinx. They're not even serious.
Now you see why. When Gavin Newsom accidentally let a sliver of truth slip, I was genuinely stunned. We've been conditioned to expect nothing but spin from him. Polished lies delivered straight to the cameras, even when the evidence stacks sky high. That's the Newsom formula. Distract, deflect, deny. And Californians have been left to live with the fallout. Businesses shutting down, families packing up and leaving the state, crime on the rise, homelessness spiraling out of control, and through it all, he flashes that trademark smile as if he's running the happiest place on earth. So when he finally admitted even a fraction of reality, it felt like spotting a unicorn in downtown San Francisco. Strange, surreal, and completely out of place, because Gavin Newsom isn't a leader. He's a salesman in a sharp suit, selling illusions while the state collapses around him. And the irony, he's been caught using the term Latinx repeatedly, despite pretending otherwise.
Look, Aaron, those aren't the only times that we found that he used it. He also used it a lot on social media. Look at a few of these right here. You see there, that is a lot of use of Latinx by him for somebody who said that nobody in his office has ever used that phrase.
Credit where it's due. Bill Maher deserves recognition for getting Gavin Newsom to finally tell the truth, maybe for the first time in his political life. That alone feels like a small miracle. Normally, Newsom is as scripted as a teleprompter, but Maher kept pressing until he admitted what the rest of us have been shouting for years. And maybe that explains why so many top Democrats treat Maher's stage like it's radioactive. They know he won't let them hide behind rehearsed sound bites or cushion them with softball questions. He pokes, he pushes, and eventually they either squirm or slip up. That's the ultimate nightmare for a party built on polished messaging and carefully staged optics. If Maher could get Newsom to break character, imagine what would happen if the rest of the Democratic elite were put under the same unforgiving spotlight.
I was on KBLA
Yeah.
yesterday, with my friend Tavis Smiley. I'm an investor and a supporter of that station. And he said, who do you want for running president? I mentioned, I think you'd be good at the job. Not this year, we know. No, I know. But he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive coming from this state and what he's done in this state to win in any southern state, any red state.
And I am convinced that Gavin Newsom has little chance of winning the presidency, no matter how genuine this new version of himself appears. Let's be honest. His track record in California is disastrous. Sure, he wears the sharp suits and has the polished image, but underneath the shine, the Golden State has become a cautionary tale. Under his leadership, crime has surged, businesses have fled, families are being driven out by crushing taxes and astronomical living costs, and homelessness has reached levels no state should tolerate. That's not a resume for a future president, that's a warning label. Even his brand of progressive politics might impress wealthy circles along the coast, but it falls flat with everyday Americans. Voters don't want rehearsed sound bites, finger-wagging lectures, or endless virtue signaling. They want real results, and time after time, Newsom has proven that he plays the part better than he solves the problems. If he believes the country is ready to buy what he's selling, he's in for a brutal political reality check. Because here's the truth. One rare, almost accidental confession on Bill Maher's stage doesn't erase years of failures, half-truths, and empty political theater. Californians know this better than anyone. They've lived through the blackouts, the wildfires, the crime waves, and the endless exodus of working families. That's Newsom's legacy. Not change, not progress, but decline. Yes, he may impress the elite crowd with his podcasts, slick speeches, and carefully branded image. But to the average voter, he lands like a lead balloon. If this is the Democratic Party's future star, then their problems run deeper than they want to admit. Newsom isn't the solution, he's the symptom. That's all for today's breakdown. If you enjoyed this analysis, make sure to hit like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.